The political staring contest, better known as the government shutdown, churned through its 17th day, doesn't look like either side is blinking anytime soon.
This shutdown could end tomorrow, and it could also go on for a long time. It's really dependent on the Democrats.
There is only one cause of this shutdown, and that is President Trump.
Glad we cleared that up. And we can expect further clarification tomorrow night when Trump delivers a primetime address aimed at making the case for funding his wall, the main sticking point in all of this. Then the PR push continues Thursday when the administration has announced the president will make a trip to the border to meet with agents. But if all else fails, it appears Trump has a plan B.
I may declare a national emergency dependent on what's going to happen over the next few days.
Joining me are Democrat Jesse Mermell, former communications director for Governor Deval Patrick, and just back from D.C. for the swearing-in of her close friend, Ayanna Pressley. Congratulations on that.
Hi,
Republican former state treasurer and Trump supporter Joe Malone. Joe, it's good to see you. Anybody have any political advantage here, and why?
Well, I think it's a high-stakes poker game where the ante keeps getting higher and higher, and nobody wants to fold. So I think what's going to happen is a further deal is going to be cut, maybe something with Dreamers or something like that. But each one is locked into their position. If they move from it, their bases are going to go nuts.
Don't you think that the president gets blamed for when he says, I can relate to the plight of the 800,000 people who are going without a paycheck? You've read these stories. I mean, a ton of these workers are worried about eviction, medical costs, a whole host of things. And then he goes on to say this rather incredible thing. I've spoken to them, and many of them, despite the fact they're not getting paid, love the fact that I'm fighting for the wall. Does anybody believe that, really?
So clearly, I mean, he's trying to make the best of shutting down
so
government.
So even you don't buy that?
No, I don't buy it. But it is important to mention here that he can't move from the position. This is his read my lips moment. If he doesn't stay and fight for this is going to be defeat in 2 years.
So, but it seems to me the Democrats are in a bit of a spot, too. It wasn't that long ago. I had to double-check this because I'm amazed that Trump hasn't brought this up. Early last year, Democrats were willing to give him not $5 billion, but $25 billion for the wall if they got the Dreamers deal in reverse. So how can they say that $5 billion is such a violation of principle when 5 times as much was acceptable if they got what they wanted?
Well, first of all, you have a year's worth of experience with Donald Trump to color your thinking. But also now the Democrats are in the majority. They're in a position to ask for different things. And, you know, I don't think the Democrats are locked into something. They came out on Thursday within hours of taking over the majority of the House and passed something that would have reopened the government. A package for everything other than DHS that would have carried us through September, and a package for DHS, Department of Homeland Security, that would have gotten us through February. The exact same package the Senate voted on mere weeks ago, and now somehow that isn't good enough. I mean, that's the question that feels incredulous to me.
Well, here's another question I'd like you to answer. Is the president doing this because he actually believes in the wall, or because this woman on the Mike Simone show essentially threatened him? Here's Ann Coulter.
Well, for one thing, he actually did shut down the government, though don't worry, he'll fold in the end.
He's scared of the Coulters and the Limbaughs. Isn't that a given?
But it's the followers.
It's true, isn't it?
It's the followers of the Limbaughs and the Coulters that he's fearful of. And those people, we're living in the 21st century. They're polling every day, both sides. They know what people are thinking out there. And with regard to right-leaning people, this is a huge issue. And if he looks like he betrays his base, he's in big trouble. And it's the same way with Pelosi and the Democrats and Schumer.
Listen, you want to talk about motivation. What are we talking about right now? We're talking about a shutdown. We're talking about a wall. What are we not talking about? Russia and Bob Mueller.
You just think it's a diversionary tactic?
Listen, wouldn't be the first time.
You know, the other issue here is he's also now, as you heard, talking about declaring essentially a national emergency and acting. I'm not an expert in the legal issue. As far as I know, we're not at war. As far as I know, I don't. Well, what is the emergency theoretically?
So first of all, I'm told that wouldn't hold up in court, and that they cite Harry Truman trying to do it years ago on another issue. But there is a case to be made.
Did you have an epiphany since I saw your last year?
No. But here's
the
here's the but. You have these caravans coming from the Central America. How is it going to stop? If you don't do something about it, it's lacking in compassion for people who are traveling hundreds of miles thinking they're going to get in this country.
When you hear that we have almost, 3 times as many people over Christmas on the border, troops I'm talking about, then he wants to withdraw from Syria. Do you not say this does not pass the laugh
Because,
test?
no, it does pass the laugh test because once and for all, he wants to say this border is closed. You just can't have people coming over the border without any process, without any vetting. You can't do that.
I interrupted you, sorry.
So can I just throw out a crazy thing here, some facts maybe to color the conversation? Since 2007, every year, nearly 2/3 of the undocumented immigrants coming to this country have been from visa overstays. It's not about the border. By the way,
as was 9/11. By
yes,
the way.
If you want to say that there's a crisis around undocumented immigrants, which we can debate, but if you think that there is, the crisis is not at the border. It is with overstays of visas.
Rain coming
so
through
why
your roof
in the world?
And you got cold air coming through your door, do you not shut your door because you say, "Well, I got rain coming through the roof"?
Yeah, but you know what you do, Joe? You do talk about how it's rain and not tourists. Mike Wallace, Chris Wallace, that left-wing guy on Fox News, took on Sarah Huckabee Sanders on this very issue a couple of days ago. Here's their exchange.
We know that roughly nearly 4,000 known or suspected terrorists come into our country illegally. And we know that our most vulnerable point of entry is at our southern border.
I know this statistic. I didn't know if you were going to use it, but I studied up on this. Do you know where those 4,000 people come or where they're captured? Airports.
She's talking about terrorists there.
Yeah, she is talking about
terrorists.
But
isn't that supposedly what we're worried about coming from over the...
What about drugs? What about MS-13? Even if they say, it's only 500 gang members.
But you shut down the government and don't pay 800,000 people over that issue? Why don't you just negotiate with members of Congress?
Because you lose your leverage, and we know what's happened in the past. They don't want it. The Democrats
don't want
to resolve.
Who blinks? Somebody's got to blink at some point, or a deal's got to be cut.
A deal's got to be cut.
What is that deal?
So I think the deal is, if the Democrats are truly concerned about Dreamers, they should say, we want the Dreamers to be given citizenship.
Why not?
Put up your
800,000 Dreamers in return for X billion dollars, which is only a percentage, as I say, of what they're willing to spend the Democrats last year.
Two reasons: values and common sense. Values, as I mentioned before, the Democrats are in the majority of the House and have a responsibility to stick to our values. Immigrants are good for this country. Undocumented immigration is not the problem that the Republicans would make it out to be. And common sense, as I said, the undocumented immigrants coming through the border, our southern border, is not a crisis. And we could spend the $5 billion the president is talking about now, the 25-some-odd billion he's been talking about for this wall overall, on the Flint water crisis, on housing, on education, on higher education. There are so many other ways that are common sense approaches to spending this money than spending it on a non-crisis.
15 seconds. What was the swearing in of your good buddy Ayanna Presley like?
Oh, my goodness. Don't make me cry. You're going to make my makeup run.
Well, that's a good enough answer. Joe Malone, it's good to
Pleasure,
see you.
Jim.
Jesse Mermell, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate it.